All right. I hope you're having a great day. We are heading into another Aetherdrift draft. Kind of been up and down in the last few. Had some 6 and 7 wins, but then stalled out in some other drafts as well. So seeing if we can keep the high win rate going, maybe pop into Diamond as a part of this draft. So pack 1 here is quite weak. There's none of the good removal at common that I want to take first. The uncommons are kind of underwhelming. Adrenaline Jockey is fine, but I wouldn't say it's a signpost you're really looking for. Canyon Vaulter is also fine, but it's in white, which is not really where I want to start. River Churn Monument is a good win condition, but it doesn't really want to drive me into blue, to be honest. So I think I'll take the Monument just because I'm comfortable there, but I could see it maybe being the jockey here, and everything else is kind of underwhelming. So we're definitely not going to stay married to our first pick here. Pack 2, good black cards and Spin Out and Necro Regent. There's a run over here. Transit Mage is excellent. So we've got some better picks here. Sky Crash is also good. To pair with River Churn, assuming I'm going that direction, I kind of want to be a more defensive deck. I could see taking Spin Out or Transit Mage probably here. And I'll stick with Transit Mage and blue. I'm passing some good black cards, so I'm kind of signaling that that's open, but we'll see where this takes us from here. All right, next pack, Haunted Hellride. Seems very solid. Lets you get aggressive in blue-black. There's a Grim Bauble. There's a Dredger's Insight. In blue, there's Thopterist, which is good if you're going to do a defensive deck. There isn't anything yet to grab with Transit Mage that I want. There's Wrangler, but I don't think this card's very good. So I think it's between Bauble, Hellride, probably Thopterist are the ones I'm interested in here. Notably, these are both black cards that I would want. I haven't played with Hellride much, but I'll just take Bauble because I think it's the safer pick that I know would always make my deck. It slows down the game, which is exactly what I want to be doing. So here there's another Bauble, also a Glide Car and a Vaulter. Signaling that white is certainly open. There's a boosted Sloop as well, which is solid if you're doing a more aggressive deck. So the safe pick would just be take Bauble and stick in these colors. Notably, we haven't seen any good blue pass to us though, so maybe that's not where we're supposed to be. I've been impressed by Glide Car, and I think Vaulter is solid. So maybe I'm supposed to speculate on being in white here, rather than taking the second Bauble. Okay, so paid off with another good white card. There's also a Memory Guardian here as well. I'm not actually sure which of those I'd rather have. Probably the Memory Guardian, just because it can be cheaper. And then it still leaves us open to black, which I think is a stronger color pair. Here we've got a Wicker Folk versus a Flood the Engine. Not really the white cards that we'd want if we're doing blue-white or black-white. I think here we take the Flood the Engine to cut the blue signal, try and solidify into one of our two colors, and then we figure out what our second one is. So that's a super late Lynx. So white certainly looks open. I think we're gonna assume that that's a signal. There's another Grim Bauble. There's a Dismal Backwater, Midnight Mangler. Do I take the Bauble here, or do I just stick with blue with the Mangler? I think we take the Mangler here. Okay, there's a Canyon Vaulter that tabled, that I, again, kind of saying is not in the range of first pickable, but certainly can be an early pick. There's Pride of the Road, which is good, but I'm probably wanting to be more in something that's artifact based rather than start your engines based. So I'm going to take the Quick Welder here. There's an Interface Ace, which is great for us. Tranquil Cove versus Gear Seeker Serpent. Put the bauble in the side. I think I'll get more Serpents, but Cove will be pretty premium for us. Mechanic I'm probably not playing. But if we look at this, I'd say pretty solid start overall. We are light on removal. And I'm going to move kind of the non-creature stuff over here. Yeah, so certainly light on removal. I don't know if this is really looking like a River Turn Monument deck just yet. But I think we got solid white cards if we decide we're going to be in that direction. I'd say Interface Ace is probably the weakest of them, and is only something we want to do if we've got some bigger cards to crew, like the Sloths, which can come late, I found, because people do not prioritize them. There's another Ace, but that's probably in the sideboard. Okay, pack 2, what do we got in blue and white? So there is Alacrian Armory, which I think is solid as the first copy in your deck. But again, white looked open, so I assume I'm going to get that. There's Roadside Blowout, which is a very solid tempo card. Just bounce something and draw a card. It's quite good. And then there's a Hull Drifter. So I think I assume I get one of these two back, and then I'm happy. And I'll take the Blowout because I need more interaction right now. So in this pack, there's a Basri. Honestly, I've kind of been unimpressed by this card. Just find it very slow. I think I'd rather have the Pathmaker here as just a good top-end card to close out the game. Noting there's a Bounce Off and a Collision Course as well. But we'll just take the Signpost here. And here there's a Haunt the Network versus Lynx. We don't have any fixing right now that gets us into black, but we do have a lot of artifacts. The other Lynx came late, but this is such a good card. Kind of a reason to be in white, so I don't think I want to pass that, but I could see it being right to take the Haunt the Network here instead, because we know we're never getting that back. Okay, we are 100% in the right colors. There's another Basri and a Synergist. Honestly, I think I'd rather have the Synergist, and we assume that we'll probably get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, one of the Basris back, hopefully. If not, again, there's like a Bounce Off in here that we're also happy enough taking. But I'm just going to take the Synergy card for our deck. Put us up to 8 artifacts. I think here it's probably the Hull Drifter. Gives us some card advantage as another artifact. Be happy enough probably getting the Kalorna back, although it is not an artifact, notably. There's a Bounce Off and a Reef Roads. We have 2 saddles, a crew, another crew. I could see it to be right to actually take Reef Roads, but I'm going to take the first Bounce Off just to make sure I've got enough going on in terms of slowing down my opponents. So this pack, Roadside Assistance is actually interesting here. I think it buys me time. I think it's better than the second Hull Drifter. This lets me stabilize along with the 2 Lynxes. So I'm going to take the Roadside Assistance. Interface Ace now. We've got a crew 3, a crew 2. It's looking all right. Okay. This is a really good sign. White is open. Rambler is solid. I think I'm going to take Gallant Strike, though. I just need more removal. And we saw a Rambler in some of the earlier picks of this pack, so I'm going to assume that I'll get one of those eventually. Okay, there's Alacrian armor. I will take the first copy of that. At that point, it kind of feels like the interface ace is unnecessary. We'll see what else we get, but do I want the removal spell or the reef roads? Got 2 pieces of removal. I think I'll take the reef roads here, actually. Make sure that I've got some plays that are in my lands. Gear Seeker Serpent versus Rambler. Yeah, I think it's the first copy of Gear Seeker. Don't think I'm playing Surveyor. Doubt I'm playing either of those. Okay. Alright, now this is interesting. I haven't seen the white reanimate effect, and Sloth is excellent, but I think I'm going to take the mythic here in the flagship. If I do see the reanimate effect, it's absurd. I doubt I'll table the Sloth in this pack, but actually this pack is quite solid, so I could see if no one's in white that I might actually get this back around. So we're going to take the flagship. Ooh, the Junker is quite good in our deck, but so is the Sundial. There's also a stock up. How much card draw do I have? I've got a Hull Drifter. Transit Mage for a tutor effect. Glory Heaths help. Yeah, this one is on the edge. I think I actually take the stock up here. And again, assume that very few people are in white. And that maybe I'll get that coming back. I think I just want the card advantage. Okay, here Rover Blades is fine, but not amazing, I've found. Maybe that changes if I've got the Serpents and stuff now. But I think I'd rather just have the first copy of Collision Course. Making sure I round out my removal. Another Synergist is perfect. There's a Nesting Bot or another Quick Welder. I mean, Nesting Bot is good in this deck, but I think the Quick Welder is better. This will just be like a sticky creature early, but this will help fuel me into my late game. Nimble Thopterus over second roadside assistance. Yeah, I think so. Okay, pick of the litter here. How many vehicles do I have? I've got 5 vehicles. I think it's between these two. Guess I'll take the creature, but again, I doubt it's making my deck. Okay, there's a Sundial. Came back around. There's also a Tranquil Cove, but I think I just take the creature here. No, I'm going to take the land and assume that I get the other one back maybe. Sloth is awesome. Take a first copy of Sloth. There's the one I assumed would table. Yeah, so just no one was in white. Not surprising, because white's probably the weakest color in this format, but I mean, if you can get Sloths tabling, Sundials tabling, it's still more than playable. Another Collision Course. On Ride's End. Wow, okay, that's... We ended up in a reasonable spot. We're going to have to make some cuts. But I'm glad I took that Tranquil Cove there, because we've got more than enough playables now. Okay. 2 Lynxes, a Vulture, a Sundial early. It's great. There's also a Glide Car. We've got 2 Collision Course, Gallant Strike. Yeah. And then top end, we've got a Serpent, a Sloth, 2 Synergists. Yeah, so I don't think I need River Turn Monument anymore. Let me check my artifacts. I've got 12. So I don't want to cut too many artifacts because I do have the Synergists and the Memory Guardian, but I don't think the River Turn is likely how I'm winning. Although it is good because I can tutor it up with Pathmaker just in case I need it as my win condition. Okay. So 2 Collision Course, Gallant Strike. How many vehicles do I have? I've got 5, so the Collision Courses are actually not bad. And I've got 14 creatures. So there's Glide Car, Mangler, Hull Drifter, Pathmaker, Flagship. I don't really want to cut my top end ones. Sloth is so good, but it's probably cutting Daring Mechanic. Want to flood the engines. Glide Car, Bounce Off, Filter. Yeah, we've kind of got an abundance of playables here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2-drops effectively, plus Collision Course, Gallant Strike, Ride's End. Destroys any artifact. Maybe it's 1 Collision Course. Probably rather keep a Bounce Off because that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of hard removal and 2 tempo cards. Already down to 12 artifacts. Plus Nimble Thopterist is 13. I'm just looking at the armory and debating if I want to be playing that, but it seems quite solid where I'm sitting here. It's tough. I mean, is it just roadside assistance? That helps me stabilize so well, particularly if I can shove it on like a Sloth or one of my big flyers or the Serpent. Seems quite solid here. Like, I'm looking at armory. It would be cutting another artifact though. 12. What is the Vaulter crewing? Hull Drifter doesn't do anything. Flagship, it doesn't really do anything. Sloth, it gives flying. Glide Car can give flying. Maybe it's the Vaulter. I think it's my weakest of my 2-drops. Probably a top end card, and maybe it's just Sloth is not good enough. Let's meet 11 creatures though. It's kind of light. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Is Gear Seeker Serpent better than Sloth in this deck? Probably. Got the Sloth, and then I think I need to cut some non-creatures now. So I have, how many creatures? 11 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, let's call it. Means probably armory. Ride's End, Gallant Strike, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of removal. Keep looking at the roadside assistance. Maybe 2 Lynxes is enough. Sure, we'll cut roadside assistance. I'll double check that I don't have anything else in the board that I want here. I think the collision course I'm unsure on. River Churn might be worth having just because I can find it with Pathmaker. But we will start with this as our deck and see how we do. All right, we are heading into game one here. Solid opener, the Voyage Glide Car. A little slow beyond that. We could be cycling the flagship if we need to, but looking for some more action here. We get into the mid game, we have a Synergist down. They've managed to activate a Scurryfoot and a Buccaneer. We do have the flagship. It unfortunately does not last and ends up getting killed in combat here as they choose to get aggressive with the Buccaneer, kind of signaling that they have something. We're going to activate regardless at this point because they're either going to kill it on their turn or on our turn. It ends up being just a Broken Wings, I believe, taking this out. And now we're kind of in a tough position. We've lost our big threat here, and we're taking extra damage now off the Buccaneer as well. Thankfully, they don't have much to follow up, and we do get a Transit Mage, which can find us a Hull Drifter to refill our hand. So we're looking all right at this point, I'd say, just because we've got that card advantage with Hull Drifter coming, and we've got flyers over their ground creatures. They managed to get a reach creature in the summoner, but at this point I've got 3 flyers. I've also got the Gallant Strike to take that out, and so we've got enough to close out the game here. So game one, I'd say, pretty smooth here. We just see our big flyers taking over in this one and getting over their ground creatures. So game two, medium opener. We've got both of our colors and we've got a Mangler on defense. It's a little slow, and I think maybe that's what I found with this deck in general, is that if we didn't find our Quick Welders, we just weren't doing much the first few turns. Here, this Lynx goes absolutely crazy. They've got the 1-2 punch of Lynx into roadside assistance, which I will say isn't an amazing combination, but just making sure it's big enough to get through the Manglers was really rough for us here. We do manage to develop a board, but they've now got a Lagoran and a Hazard of the Dunes on the blocker. And I think that was another note out of this, is that while the flyers in blue-white seem solid, there's the blue affinity for artifact 3/4 flyer and the Guide Light Synergist in white here. Both of those line up horrifically against Hazard of the Dunes. The fact that Hazard of the Dunes just has 4 power to kill both of those cards on block means that white and blue line up terribly with their flyers against the most popular color combination in green. And so maybe that's why I felt like this deck has been underwhelming when I've played it. Could be something else, but just it feels like the way that this deck is supposed to be able to get through with their larger flying creatures just never seems to work out as expected, because they just don't line up as well in this format as anticipated. So this game, they've just had the nuts against us. They had that Lynx into a Lagoran, into a Hazard of the Dunes. They've now got Detention Chariot for a creature, and this is just too much to overcome. At this point, we've got to bounce off to try and buy ourselves an extra turn, but doing this doesn't even save much for us, and then they've got to defend the Rider anyways. So this game is over, and I think this is where we kind of see that while on paper the blue-white flyers might look interesting, it just lines up terribly against the strongest color in the format, which is green. So game 3 here, Again, looks like a solid enough keep. We got 2, 3, 4, and a Transit Mage to refill. So we'll see how this one lines up for us. In this game, we draw one of our 5 mana artifacts, but we've got some other hits still in the deck with Transit Mage. So not too worried about drawing that at this point. So we get into the mid game. They've played a Gastel Raider, which hit nothing because everything is artifacts in our hand except for this stock up we've now drawn. We're missing land drops. I was debating here, do I play like stock up to guarantee a land drop? But then I'm kind of going slow in the game here, and I'd rather, I think, stay aggressive, start getting more damage in, because they're just threatening with 2 power creatures at this point, and we can start racing them. So we managed to stabilize. We find some more lands. They haven't really put any pressure on us at this point, and so this is where our flyers now look extremely strong into this blue-black matchup that just has kind of middling creatures that just can't race properly. So we can get over the top of them and close this game out with those big flyers. So next game here, slow hand, I'll say. Maybe this keep was a little suspect because we don't really have any play until Flood the Engines. We don't really want to be tempoing a bounce off on, in this case, a Vinwixt. Doesn't really do anything for us. We do manage to find a glide card, thankfully, to help line up some early plays for us. But they just end up having a much better blue-black deck compared to the last one, where they've got a Pactol Terror, which allows their Vinwixt to get online, so I feel forced to use Flood the Engines on the Vinwixt to remove their card advantage. We get a Pathmaker out, and I'm debating how big I want to go with this. Do I just get a small creature that can crew this up? Do I get something bigger than play later, like a Hull Drifter or the Flagship at this point? I believe in this position I choose to take the Hull Drifter because we've got a removal spell in Ride's End and a tempo spell in Bounce Off, and so just looking for fuel at this point felt like the right call. And then now we're kind of staring down a wide board, and awkwardly we don't have any flyers at this point. So maybe what I was supposed to do is actually get a more defensive flyer, something that could block the Wicker Folk and the Thopterist properly, but we end up in this board state here where the 4 power in flying creatures is looking quite daunting for us to try and get through. And then they just draw the nuts in an Aether Siphon when they're on max speed, and this game kind of closes out pretty quickly here as they just mill us out. We don't really have any answer to that in our deck. I think maybe we've got 1 collision course, so we essentially needed to top that the following turn, but this game is, clearly shut with them getting that draw off the top here. So sitting at 2-2 here, can't keep that hand. We're going to mull down here. Slightly awkward, but at least we've got a 2 mana play, a removal spell, and the Voyager. And so we're going to keep this one, bottom one of the blue cards, and try to see if we can get this to round out. Actually go with the 2 mana creature. Maybe that was wrong here. I don't remember exactly how this plays out, but just having a defensive creature early could have been good. We've got to Flood the Engine. We've got to shut down their flyer. So again, this is kind of like, it felt like awkward halves. If we'd had some of our flyers lining up against that strategist, would have looked great for us. Without our flyers, it looks super awkward because we've got these quick welders and stuff on the ground. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of another at this point with this deck. And I just hadn't felt like we were getting a cohesive strategy. They now have a Mu Yangling, probably one of the best cards in the format here. We do have a Gallant Strike for it, thankfully. but it's kind of just slowing down the inevitable, and we just haven't found the action that we needed. And so at this point, they're just going to do the big green card stuff now, and exhaust creatures and our Thopters just do not line up well against this. And so we'll stick it out, see if I can get anything off the top here to try and bring us back in the game, but they end up going super wide. They've now got a Seed of Arma and a Boom Scholar, and so this game closes out in quick order as they can just get aggressive with the Tarion here. So unfortunate that we didn't do better with this deck, but honestly, I think this has kind of been my experience with blue-white in this format, which is it just doesn't line up well. Like, it looks like it should have the synergies with the artifacts. It looks like it has a decent removal in it as well, but it just doesn't feel like its place in the format is well-founded because of how strong green is and how much reach there is floating around there. Because on paper, I'd say, deck is unexciting. I think the flagship was probably a little optimistic. I probably should have been playing Riverturn Monument instead, but this looks like a fine deck. It looks like we should do better than 2 and 3, but our matchups just don't play out that way. It always feels like we're just getting outsized, and that our evasion isn't relevant, essentially. So I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully we'll do better on the next one. Thanks so much for watching.